Okay, I'm going to call the CRA Advisory Board to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A couple of announcements. There's a sign-in sheet right on the table right there where Teresa's pointing. If you would please, if you'd like to make some public comments tonight, if you would sign your name and put your address on the sign-in sheet, that would make it very easy for the clerk to certainly record everybody. And secondly, there are some comment cards that are on the podium, and you certainly can also just fill out comment cards as well. So you can feel free to do that as well. Would the clerk please call the roll? Here.
Here.
Present.
Present. Here.
Thank you. Do I have any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do I have any questions about the financial report presented in our agenda? Hearing none, do I have, is there any public comment that would like to talk about any agenda items this evening? I'm sorry, this is for public comment for non-agenda items. I'm sorry, when we get to agenda items, then we'll stop and ask for public comment for the agenda items. So is there any public comment for non-agenda items? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is the only item we have on the consent agenda is the approval of our advisory board minutes from February 7th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes from the February 7th advisory board meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. We have no pending assignments or reports on pending assignments, so we have new assignments, which is the discussion and consideration of the CRA's MLK Jr. Boulevard product conceptual development terms.
Yes, Board Chair and board members. This item is a new assignment from the CRA Board as of their their February 12th meeting. They have listened to the presentation made by Centennial Management Corp., which was the selected respondent from the Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Corridor Project, RFP, RFQ, and after the presentations that were made by by Centennial at the February 12th meeting and a few comments from the public, the CRA board voted not to move forward or do anything particular with the item and instead wanted to push it down to the CRA advisory board as a new assignment for you to listen to the presentation from Centennial Management on the project that was submitted for the RFP, which is a conceptual project with numbers that are based in reality, but of course, as you know, as projects begin to develop, the actual number, cost of the project, or what have you, will be flexible. So it isn't important tonight to decide whether the cost is correct or exact, or if you're comfortable with that. It'll be a presentation of the cost of the project, what they need from the CRA, what the site plan and the elevations are, and then for purposes of kind of bringing it back together as an assignment, the board is looking for recommendations on these three particular points. to listen to the various financing options available, and maybe you weigh in on a recommendation of a priority based on the three that they propose, or if there's a fourth that you have on your own idea of something. But you're kind of looking at an order of what you think would be great to do first. Each of those funding categories also relate to an income eligibility or a targeted income that those funds serve. For instance, the 9% low-income housing tax credit program is a affordable housing program that targets incomes and household incomes of 30% of median to 80% of median. There are other programs that you wouldn't see tonight that are only 30 to 50% of median. And then there are other programs in the country where they're higher. So you're going to connect the dots between the funding source and the targeted income, because the part of the RFP was to provide affordable housing and workforce housing as part of the project. And then the third component is to provide recommendations of support or change or comment on the overall site plan and the components of the site plan that is presented in their proposal to the CRA. So they're going to take you through their vision, their conceptual based on the CRA plan, based on the RFP that we provided them, based on meetings from September, October, November. We didn't have a December, a January, and a February meeting. So they have literally been presented almost at every one of those board meetings, and they've taken comments at each of those. And while they haven't tweaked it from their original proposal, they certainly have taken into account the comments that are made and the direction from the board. So with the board's pleasure, I would say that the order of activity tonight would be that the presentation from Centennial is done, and then you can determine at that point whether you would like to hear comment from or input from the public, and that would be input only and not a conversation or what have you back and forth. This is an opportunity for the public to tell you what they think of the presentation, right? And if there are specific questions, we can take those down as staff and get back to them with that. But this would not be something that you would be prepared to get into detail with, okay? And then if you do it that way, then when the public comment is over, then the board can discuss the item, and I'll help you try to stay focused on those 3 points, because it's a big project, but we're not here to discuss all of the phases. There's still, there's input, the board taking it to the next level, which is really to begin negotiations for a development agreement. We're not even at that point yet. We're really just trying to find out from you how you feel about it, how the public feels about it. Were they on the right track? Was the board on the right track? Your recommendation on those. Okay? So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Board Chair.
All right, so we have a representative from Centennial here to walk us through. Yes. All right, take the podium.
Okay, thank you for letting us have the opportunity to present in front of you guys. So my name is Brian Jaffe. I'm with Centennial Management. The president and CEO of the company is on their way as well. They may be here later to answer some further questions. So the MLK Corridor redevelopment project, we're very excited about, especially to just add value to that area. Thank you. So our overall development vision, we're planning on a mixed-use urban redevelopment community that uses Floridian design style to integrate the culture of the area into our design. We're planning on building 124 affordable apartment units with approximately 8,000 square feet of retail space. In that retail space, there's going to be a 3,200 square foot covered breezeway, as well as 2,500 square feet in one of the apartment buildings for a clubhouse or an office, or if need be, more retail space if the community wants.
Excuse me, we'll answer the questions in a minute.
Yes. He's going to take you through that, if you'll give him time for the presentation from the...
He,
All right, so it's right off Martin Luther King Boulevard and Seacrest. So we did a lot of research in the area. We're trying to integrate the culture and the history of the local area. We plan on having an art wall to have a local artist come and design one of the walls in our community. We also are adding a Caribbean influence design concept. We're labeling it Floridian, and we've used a local architect who's familiar with it, and we've incorporated that into our design. So we want to revitalize retail on MLK. We held meetings with the public, and they expressed that they really wanted more retail on MLK Boulevard. So we try to incorporate as much retail space as possible into our design. We came up with approximately 8,000 square feet of retail space. The possible tenants could include a barber shop, ice cream parlor, medical care facility, casual dining, a coffee shop, whatever the community wants. Whatever they want in that space, they are more than happy to have. We plan to hire a local artist for one of the walls, as I mentioned. And also, we plan on hiring local subcontractors to incorporate the community into building this project so it feels more like it is part of the community being built by the community. We plan on doing this by holding a job fair at the site. So this is the project aerial, so you can get a better understanding. The orange parcels are owned by the CRA. The darker border outlines the project area, and the yellow and the blue parcels are privately owned that we are in negotiations with acquiring to build this project. This is more of an accurate site plan. It's our proposed site plan. It's not definite, and we are more than willing to have community input into changing it, adding to it, redesigning it. This is a street view. In the center, you'll see the open air breezeway with the either coffee shop or restaurant, and on both sides, first floor retail with the second floor being apartments. Second and third floor, those are three-story buildings. This is a more broad overview of the 4 buildings that we plan on building. It's another street view. You know, there's going to be balconies, lush landscaping, large sidewalks, street parking. We just plan to add color and revitalize that whole corridor. And then the unit floor plans, we plan on having 1 1s, 2 2s, and 3 2s. And we're also going to be having the building be green certified. Some of the features include balconies, wood cabinets, granite countertops, large tile flooring, large walk-in closets, washer and dryers in every unit. So to the financial structure, these are 3 of the options we have. There are plenty of other options we're willing to negotiate. These are just the top 3 that we felt best suit this project. The first option is funding it through just tax income revenue funds, where we would get a CRA grant of $1.2 million, as well as funds throughout 15 years, and the rents will be determined by the CRA. So there is no financing contingency with this option. It is completely up to the CRA how they would like the rents to be allocated and how the project will be fully funded with a partnership with the CRA and ourselves. Then the second option would be applying for the 9% housing credits. That's through the Florida Housing Finance Corp., so there is a financing contingency. It is a competitive process. We will, since there are more funds available, since it's through Florida Housing, we are offering to acquire the CRA land at a price. We are taking the CRA grant, but there is no need for the CRA tax income revenue for this option. For this option, since it is through Florida Housing, there are rent restrictions, and it is between 30 and 80% of the area median income, and I'll show you how that chart plays out with the rents on the next slide. And the third option will be a sale loan, which is a state apartment incentive loan with a combination of TIF money, and as you can see, it has a financing contingency, and the rents are the same. It will be between 30 and 80%, and that's set by Florida Housing. So this is the income and rent limits. So as you can see, depending on the area median income and how many people are in that apartment with their household income determines the rents. And this is allocated by HUD, which goes through Florida Housing, which if we do the 9% deal or the sale, we are restricted to abiding by these rents. Also, we plan on having future phases of this project. As you saw in the previous slide, there are plenty of parcels still owned by the CRA that are not under contract, don't have any future plans for, so we plan on building. Our ideal project would be to build townhouses on them in order to incorporate home ownership on the MLK Boulevard corridor. And this is all just projected. It's not set in stone, and we're more than willing to renegotiate and negotiate the second or third phases of this project. And we appreciate you giving us the time to present, and we're more than happy to answer questions.
What is the timeline on these different financing structures? So, I mean, obviously, if it's all CRA money, then the timeline is our timeline. But what's the timeline on the 9% and the sale?
So they come out about in later this year, around October, and are due around, this year they were due around late October, early November. But in order for us to apply for those, we need to have site control and we need to have everything set in line. So it kind of, we were trying to apply for a revitalization sale, workforce sale application that did come out, and it was postponed because of the commission's postponement of this deal. So if we can put the deal together and have site control by October or early September, then we could apply for both the 9% and the sale applications for that.
So you'd have to have site control by September to apply for both of these. Now, is there any impact on the fact that Ocean Breeze East just got the 9% credits?
So if we were a separate developer, it could possibly impact us, but also if since there is a local government contribution, the proximity is not affected with the 9%. With the sale, it is possibly affected by the family demographic. So we are almost certain that we want to go for the 9% housing credit, which means that there will not be any impact on our application with Ocean Breeze.
I'm not sure I understood the answer.
So
Could you explain when you said that the sale came
Because we
with...
just got the 9% credits for Ocean Breeze East, so I'm
Correct.
wondering, is it a negative or a positive or
well,
neither?
it's neither technically, because since we do have a local government contribution through the Florida Housing Code, that eliminates the proximity issues that we have.
For the sale and for the 9%, or just for the 9%?
Just for the 9%.
What
So
you're-
there's a negative impact on the sale if we
Correct.
apply for that.
Correct.
And what is the negative impact on the sale if you apply for that?
If we apply for that, then it would have to be an elderly demographic or a workforce.
Elderly or workforce, and what is the workforce difference between the low-income housing tax credit and the workforce? If we have a choice of elderly or senior housing under sale, and it sounds like we have a choice for workforce under sale.
Correct. The workforce is higher rents. So it's a demographic where the rents are higher.
That's a slightly misleading statement, and I don't mean to say
No,
that to you, Brian. We've been working together here for a while now on this project, but it is higher rents because the household income is higher. So,
Well, I figured that. So in
well, I
other
want to
words, it
make sure
can't
the
be 30
public,
to
they might not
80%.
understand it. When you just say the rents would be higher,
Okay.
it's based on the area median income of your household. If that's a 30% of median income household, then your rent is formulated to be affordable at 30%.
So
If you-
but he's got on the sheet 30 to 80% for the
Correct.
sale. So that's not really what it is. It's got to be something higher than that.
Right, it should say 30 to 80% for senior and workforce for non-senior. That-
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's two options under sale for income and
Right.
age.
That's what I was
There you go.
trying to figure out.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
wanna make sure.
workforce is a higher,
It's still considered affordable housing.
Right.
It is, the workforce percentage, unless I'm wrong, is generally thought to be 100% of median to 120% of
that's what
median.
because that's what the percentages are on the other page.
Not 80 to 120, it's 100 to 120? Could
No,
it be?
it's 80.
It's 80, so it's from 80% of median income to 120. So you still get your low-end, low-income, higher percentage at the low income, and you go higher into the incomes, so it's a different
I'm not
target
saying that's a
range.
bad thing.
Oh, no,
I
we're
just
not-
want to know what, because I didn't think it was 30 to 80.
I want to make sure that you understand and the
Right.
public understands,
So,
because,
so if we went the sale route, you could only do the 30 to 80 if we wanted to make the project senior only. We'd have to go workforce, which is 80 to 120, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the financing would mean it would have to be 80 to 120, and that's going to mean, does that impact the amount of money that the CRA has to provide? No, doesn't change that at all. Okay.
target population.
Just
And
the
we have a 30 to 80% of median income project a block away at Ocean Breeze East site.
Right.
So you have 123 units there at the 30 to 80% of median income range, and now you have a project of equal amounts of units with either the same targeted income range
For
or
senior.
the ability to choose, if the boards and the public saw fit, then you have the option under the sale program to target a different income.
Right.
Or a senior income, or a senior.
Right.
You're absolutely right. That's the kind of input we're looking for at the end of the night.
And the private land, you just have dollars in there.
Yes, because we had them under contract, but since it was postponed, our contracts expired, so we have to renegotiate them, and those amounts are not known as of now.
Would it help the board and the public, perhaps, if you go to the next page of your rent and income limits and maybe pick, a 60% of median income household of 4, what that income is and what that rent is it's really, I want to say it's capped. It's
Correct.
organized to only be that rent. That's why the funding is so important to these projects, because they are generally not market rate rents or rents that could carry the project by itself. So I know it's small writing. I thought if you pulled a couple numbers out, just as an example, it might help. Or I can.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My name is Elizabeth Roque. I'm with Centennial Management. As far as our income and rent limits, if you had at a 60%, if you had 4 people in a family and they were living in a 3-bedroom apartment, their rent would be $1,200 less their utility allowance, which could be approximately about $140, which you would deduct from that.
Okay.
And what is a 60% of income with a family of 4, the AMI?
Well, the income limit with a family of 4 to 60% is $46,140. They cannot exceed that number. and a two-bedroom would be $1,039, less approximately $100. Yeah. So it'd be around $940 a month.
Right, minus the utilities, right?
Always minus the utility allowances. These are actually wonderful programs, and we're really happy that we can provide these for the community because we provide a beautiful project, and I know you got to see the renderings that we do, and at the end of the day, they're extremely successful, and we wind up providing beautiful accommodations for a lot of people.
Yeah, Mike, I got a
they
question
did all
because
that.
I obviously missed like a big part of this over the last year when we first kind of started with this. Was it not on the original proposal that part of the who we would pick or who we wouldn't choose as what we proposed to the CRA board was that we had lots here, we had lots there, and I think the Bells Plaza was asking a large number, and we were going to contribute X amount of dollars so that we could have one full parcel. So
There is funding available in the budget for the project, whether that is the acquisition portion or the construction portion, is, I think, part of the overall deal, if you will. So there is not funding set aside for acquisition of a certain property, but there is funding to assist the developer in developing the project that would include or may not include, depending on the price, the property. And in this particular case, actually both cases, both the one that wasn't selected by the board and the one that is selected by the board, the cost of the Bell's property is prohibitive to the project. So it is not going to be part of the project. It's not because we don't want them to be, or the developer doesn't want them to be, but the price for their property is, the project doesn't work. Just so everybody knows, we're not intentionally going around them. We'd love for them to be part of the project, and Centennial is discussed in their presentation trying to assist the plaza, the Bell's property, in some type of facade facelift or some type of additional improvements that we could do to the project that exists there, but it is not incorporated at this point into the project.
My question is, we talking about, all I hear is about the rental part of it. So we're not in the process of single-family homes? We don't do that anymore? Or we just got this project rental product at all?
This is an affordable housing community, and it is a rental property. There is another phase that we're hoping to look into that will be townhouses that we will be hoping to be able to help with either first-time buyers and some type of program to be able to have houses that they can own.
Yes. The land use and zoning in the CRA plan and the city's future land use and zoning in this particular corridor, after the result of, as you know, many of the meetings on the plan, the corridor from Seacrest to Railroad Avenue is basically two ends of commercial or mixed use, if possible, and in between is multifamily, whether that's townhouse, duplex, rental, apartments, but it isn't individual single-family homes in that corridor. Now, Cottage District, Ocean Breeze West, the west side of Seacrest, there are areas of infill that we are doing currently, but the plan for the corridor, with the public's input over years, has been commercial at each end with residential above, a mixed use if we could, and then more units in between than single-family homes. So their proposal is not to put single-family in these orange boxes, but we have, the Cottage District is perhaps 30 to 34 houses, which is the block between 4th and 5th.
Okay.
So we have an opportunity tonight to discuss two totally different types of development that offer both single-family and one offers rental. So it's, I mean, we're really kind of sitting in a great spot, I mean, as a
Right,
community.
that was my concern, because we was talking about rental, by hitting
Sure.
about the owner, and I said, wait a minute, now
Sure.
we got to have both.
Well, and one of the things that Centennial talked about was, you know, you have Ocean Breeze East and you have the units that are here on MLK corridor that are going to be built that are rental. And we all know through the good works of companies like Centennial or the faith-based CDC or NRI or Habitat, sometimes people who live in these types of rentals end up being able to move out and afford single family or a townhouse. So one of the things that we've discussed in the last couple of months really is perhaps those individual lots there could be some type of a program. Ideally, that's the best program in the, to do, but it doesn't
You know,
always
one of the
work.
things about the affordable housing community, and when people come to apply with their income restrictions, once they're into our community, after that, if they make more money, they can stay. So it's something where it actually provides a benefit for them to have the lower rents and to be able to save money, so that eventually they can move out and buy and purchase something. And we do have a lot of families in our communities that have that opportunity.
Okay, that's what I was concerned about, so you answered that.
I'd like to open it up to public comment. And when you come to the mic, if you would please state your name and spell it for the clerk, that would be great. And also sign in on the sign-in sheet if you haven't already signed in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Stephanie Hayden Adiemo. I reside at 2181 Southwest 15th Avenue, Condo N102, Boynton Beach, Florida 33426. Mr. Pollock's question that he asked was a good one. And you said that we are only here to have an opportunity for the public to say about the presentation, correct?
For this public comment, this particular presentation,
Yes. Okay.
But we have another one later, so you can talk about that one later too.
Can you go back to the slide, the rendering where you have the buildings and the what you're using for the street parking? It's the aerial shot. Okay, that's good. Now, Mr. Pollock asked the question about homes, but I did hear a lot of questions regarding the income and the changing of demographics if they don't make the qualification to get the monies by October. So that would change the makeup of who will be able to possibly be in these rental units. Is that not correct? He came before, he was discussing. If you can go back to the slide also with where you were going over the ship, the turf, the sail.
Talking about the financing slide.
Yes. Here. And I think you were saying that if you Florida housing is 30 to 80. If you're only going to do Florida housing, is that the TRF, Florida housing?
No, the 9% tax credits.
Is Florida housing? Okay, the sale TRF money is 30 to 80. That's if they apply in time, but you missed the last window for the sale.
Well, the sale, the 9% credit came out in two different cycles. The main cycle, the RF, we didn't miss it. It wasn't available. Yeah, I'm sorry, Louis Sweezy, President of Centennial Management. And then they came out with the neighborhood revitalization. And that one we missed. We could have applied for had it not got delayed.
Can I just ask you to ask your question and then we'll respond? How's that? And if we can respond, we will. If not, we'll get back to you.
Okay, because during the presentation, it sounds like Mr. Simon brought up the fact and asked them to provide an example that the demographics is going to change, number one. Who you're marketing it to is going to change if we only go CRA base versus financing from some other unit. And then you would change who actually is going to be in those units if it's rental.
Yeah.
Why can't we consider making majority of the project townhomes?
Okay.
And that's what Mr. Pollock was asking. I get that their community has an opportunity, and it's worked before, where you had rentals move from rentals with the aid of a program to home ownership. But why can't we, because the land is limited and the parking is not a lot. So if there's 4 people residing in a home, where would the people park on the street? Is it going to be designated parking for renters, or is it a free-for-all parking?
Okay.
So these are questions we have to ask, because if you have home renters that are coming like 5, 6, 7 people, we already have issues with parking in the city and buildings coming. So these are like, I know I asked 3 loaded questions, but those are concerns. Thank you.
What I've got from that is the comment is, can it be townhomes? So that's one comment. The second is, who is the demographic? And I would say that while there is a percentage of income attached to every household, affordable housing is the goal of this project and is this project. Whether it is 30% of median income, 35, 38, 48, 88, 98, 120%, all of this is considered affordable housing, workforce housing. So regardless of the funding source, while the percentage of median income, as it compares to the median income of Palm Beach County, that household's income, that's all that means, would change based on whoever applies and lives there. But no one can make more than 120 or 80. So it's although the full category is affordable units, if that helps, is a big overall discussion. And the parking item, as a rental project, there's a certain calculation that the city has for parking spaces per unit, and whether that's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom has a different count of parking, that this project would have to meet the city's code requirements for rental structures of certain amounts of units. And those units and the parking, as you can see in the site plan, if we can bring that back up, similar to 500 Ocean or Ocean Breeze East that's being built, the parking spaces and the parking that you see behind those apartment buildings is for the residents of those buildings and units. And while everyone, I think, realistically understands that a husband and wife and 2 kids will have 2 cars, and it might be 2 individuals living there with 2 cars, or even 3 with 3 cars, the city's calculation on a project like this is what the developer has to adhere to, similar to other projects throughout the city or in any city. So while we don't know exactly what those counts are tonight, based on the 124 units or 100 units or 84 units, it would have to be approved, and the site plan would have to meet the requirements of the city. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Well, I mean, just going back to Mr. Pollock, and then I'll have my seat. If we're spending, well, not me, because it's not my money, the CRA budget, to create parking lots where you can tabulate homes, single-family homes on, I'm just asking for residents, then you're creating parking spaces where homes can go on and a single driveway can be put in. I'm just asking for residents, because it seems to me that it's not a lot of property, that's number one, and you have so much density on that property with parking where you can have to have a continuity or a flow with the plan of the corridor if they were single-family homes with commercial on both sides that mimic what's on the left side. There's no commercial on the right side of MLK. Is that correct? It's all residential. why couldn't you do the same consideration? I know you guys are far gone now, but there's a lot of out there that you don't have. For example, you don't have the extra money unless the CRA is going to go and finance everything.
Okay,
And that's my last question.
Thank you for your comments. Mike, we need to put the timer on. Next,
5 minutes or 3 minutes?
3 minutes. Any more public comments about this particular project? Questions are fine too, and we may not have the answer, we might have to get back to you.
Tory Oil, 407 Northeast. Oh, you, go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Okay, my name is Brenda Williams. I live at 337 Northeast 24th Avenue here in Boynton, 33435. My question is, I'm kind of late to the game, so I didn't know this company, Sentinel Management Group. Were they the ones that got the bid? Because I know our church had went into this bidding to develop that land also. No, I know it's on,
That's Ocean
Yeah, I think
Breeze.
it was the
Ocean Breeze
Ocean Breeze
East.
East. This is a different project.
okay, so when did this come up
Completely different project.
with our people put in a proposal?
I think it was
to
last summer.
Okay, so I never heard of any of the other groups or any advertisement or anything about these proposals that was being presented. So at this point now it's past the point of return. But I'm just a little concerned because I don't feel like we've had adequate input in what they were going to put up there. And that's my concern, because when people build things in the quote low income area, you don't ever have any input from anybody on your board or anywhere else that represent the kind of people that you're trying to attract in that area, the low income. And that's my concern, because when you don't have somebody at the table, they can't give input. And when you talk about parking, one car parking for a family of 4 is not adequate, because they put all these other houses in Boynton, in the heart of Boynton, with one car garages, and then you have people parking on the side of the street, which creates hazards. And it just befuddles me, because you don't have adequate announcements about these things that are coming up. And that has been my contingent with this city from the time I've been involved with this city since 1970. I moved here in 1959, but I was a child. And I've grown up in this city, and it's always been the same thing. You never find out about what's going on until it's actually going on and it's done. It's a done deal.
Williams, do you have input on the project that's been presented this evening? Do you have any input?
Is there anything else that you,
Is there anything about the project? Because it's not done. It's not done.
Just
It's
the
not
parking?
signed. Just
yeah,
parking?
we haven't signed anything
So just parking?
yet, just the parking.
Okay, parking concern. Okay.
Good evening. Minister Bernard Wright, 713 Northwest 2nd Street, Boynton Beach. As a community advocate, and Brother, I thank you for your concern, but I've been coming here and coming to CRA board meetings, the commission meetings for going on 8 years now. To God be the glory. This particular project, I've been to practically every meeting. I'm sorry that you're coming from behind. But you know, we can't wait till you come up to get all of this to try to return. We're trying to keep moving and go forward. This is history. History all the way around the board and Boynton without enumerating where history has taken place. To God be the glory. And this is really history. Around Cochin history, Wells Landing. Who could ever imagine? To God be the glory. But here's a visual concept from the community. Over 200 that's in the record. Citizens say this is practically what they want. What has already been, always have been. Residents on the top, commercial on the bottom. This is nothing new. To God be the glory. It's about history, it's about culture. And hey, baby, we are keeping it moving. We want to continue to go on, and let's everybody have a concern in it, but have an interest in it, and everybody get a benefit from it, from bottom to top. Right now, we are history where we have a developer here. We've gotten where we've never gotten before. I'm saying not just my 8 years of advocacy, but we're talking about going all the way back to my first cousin, Samuel Lamar Wright, first black city commissioner. And I was a part of that, having set the groundwork so people of my age can register to vote, and they did, and we had voters' power. Thank God for history being made, even today with Corey Jones. History is being made. We're going to see that history continue to be made. We're going to stand in this prophetic spirit of a better Boynton. Thank God for all y'all are coming. But if you attend the meetings, you'll be up on top of what's going on. To God be the glory. It's no offense to no one. But you know, this is what's been going on for years. Community meetings, community meetings, community meetings, and no development. Right now, we're at this stage. Let's continue to go on. God bless all of you all. And I thank God for everybody who's involved and have a part in it. God be the glory.
I have a question. My name is Willie Akins, and I live at 726 Northeast 1st Street, Boynton Beach. I'm also the president of the Heart of Boynton Neighborhood Association. I just want to address each and every one. I think you're doing a great job, but I do have some concerns. One of my concerns is that I'm looking at the prices. I'm looking also at the designs, how it's made like that. No one had ever said this. I have to talk to people, I represent people that's 25 and older, and we're holding. So none of y'all might understand that we're a little older. No one have ever said that. Is there any elevators in any of these rooms, any of these buildings? It is? Yeah, all the floors are thing. Okay, we never mentioned that and never been saying, so this is a detail that, you know, I never hear and never ask. And also, the demographics of actually the pricing, I think you have to look at that too, because we don't have any big companies or big organizations that right now people are making that kind of money, $100,000 or over. So I heard the gentleman here said at one time too, we're trying to make this thing as cost affordable as much as possible. But when you're not making, when you start looking at $1,000 a month and you got 4 kids and you're by yourself, that's not actually cost effective. So maybe we need to look at it a little bit more. And the demographic, you need to take Boynton Beach as part of the demographic and what we have here, because a lot of the jobs are here, and see exactly can we make some changes to that.
Well, it depends on the household income.
Right.
So if you're by yourself and...
Well, let's lose somebody. Well, the average home around here have 2 or 3 kids, okay?
Okay,
so let's use that one.
Pick an income level.
Scale.
There's
Okay.
a scale of income.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
was at a 60%
Average school teacher
median.
scale, okay, they make between $45,000 and $50,000.
Oh, okay.
I know.
So say 38. Then if they have 2 kids and they make 38,000, then that would be $866 a month minus 160 of utilities would put that at $700 a month.
Okay, all right. That's
So it's not,
understandable.
so see, it goes by and then you go down.
Okay,
In a brand new building.
okay, that's better understanding then, okay?
Yeah. So
The
the
same
whole-
thing if they had 4 kids and still had that same time
Whole
income.
big chart back here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? My name is Tori Orr, 407 Northeast 17th Avenue, apartment 101, and I represent Boynton Strong. And I speak for a community who make less than $24,000 a year in District 2. So I don't know where y'all saying we're gonna come up with all this money at. Like how are they gonna get approved when you got a person who got 3 kids and she only gets $750 a month just on child support? How's she gonna be approved for that? Like me, I make $26,000 a year. How I'm gonna be approved for that? Like, you know, I'm gonna be approved for a 1-bedroom.
You would be.
I wouldn't be?
You would be.
Would be.
You would be. A single person making $24,000 or $26,000 is considered 50% of median income, and you are eligible for this project, and you would pay, for a 1-bedroom apartment, you would pay $673 a month.
Minus utilities,
Minus
that would be
utilities, so
$500,
$500
that'd be $500 a month.
Okay, that's real good. Okay, and I seen on the paper where y'all was gonna have a community kid center. That's real awesome. I'm speaking for Boynton Strong, you know, sending that message out because we seen it today. We seen where y'all had a community caring center for the children. That's most important because all them apartments are gonna be from The houses are gonna be from the cottage, Ocean Breeze East. A lot of them, they could walk maybe, what is it, quarter of a mile from community center to there. And I was asking about, how do y'all feel about giving us like a medical center, like something like they throwing them up everywhere, what they call?
A clinic?
Like a clinic?
Yeah, like, you know, because we don't have any, no urgent care, like an urgent care.
Urgent care.
We don't have that in our community, and we don't have nowhere in District 2, well, in the heart of Boynton, from Cherry Hill to 10th Avenue, all the way across to Gateway, and all the way back to Boynton Beach Boulevard. We don't have nowhere we could go get a fresh tomato at. Just a fresh tomato. You know, just one fresh tomato. We got to go way out to Boynton Beach Boulevard in Congress, or Old Boynton. To say, you know, would y'all consider, you know, giving us the dollar store? I'm disgusted with dollar stores, you know, I'm disgusted with them, you know. You can't even go in there and get a fresh gallon of milk right now. It'll go spoil tomorrow. So, you know, I'm asking, you know, can y'all reconsider putting a farmer's market or anything where we could get fresh produce in our neighborhood as well as all the other districts have that ability? Every other district in Boynton is within 3 miles from a grocery store. Every other district. Heart of Boynton, you within 5 miles of Bella. Come on. So with that being said, I'm out.
Mike, I heard an urgent care or a clinic and a farmer's market, fresh produce, some sort of farmer's market. Grocery store.
All do.
Well, we don't have a lot of control over that, but anyone else? Okay, Susan.
Without me asking a question. Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I'm wondering, since you're looking to have this affordable housing, have they gotten to the point where they've thought about the handicap parking? And if we are going to be pulling more of a senior group, then maybe we should be looking at having more handicap parking than what's actually required for by the city. And Mike looks like his head wants to explode right now.
It is, because I appreciate the concern for a detail that is some ways away. So my understanding, Susan, that your comment or your input is you'd like to see a senior housing complex here? How would we take your comment? Do you want senior, or do you care?
Are you leaning towards that?
What is
Or?
that? Is that the input?
I honestly don't care. I think this is a great, fabulous project. But if you are leaning towards seniors, then I think you need to make sure that there's enough parking, and that's my concern, is you know, whatever direction you're going. If you're looking for young working people, I assume the city's factors in, look at a lower amount of cars because they're assuming there's going to be more public transport. Or
The reverse. There's less parking.
Is it?
When you have a senior, the idea is that the senior is using
Public
other modes of
transportation.
transportation.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
parking, if there's either, I don't know what the code is for the city's, you know, obviously in charge of that, but I believe that it's the reverse. You have less need the older you get.
And they use more of the,
But that's probably controversial count too. How do they exactly figure that out? But that's what we got. I got that
yeah,
for sure.
I just would want to make sure we have adequate handicap spots. Yeah. Thank you very much.
thanks, Susan.
Hello, Alexandra Wilson. My request, could we have some affordable housing for startups? More like 2 bedrooms, 3 bedroom homes, nothing too big. Something where kids like coming from college, they can move into the area, not too expensive, just enough where we can afford it. Also, I request that we bring more family parks, but not so much just green parks. I want to say parks that bring family together. My requests are water park, things of that nature, more family parks.
Are you talking about single-family homes or apartments that are 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom?
I'm talking about both. I know on Delray, I'm not sure of the street, I think it's like 5th Street, they have the townhomes where it's upstairs and downstairs.
Okay, so you're talking about home ownership.
Home ownership
Okay,
where...
that's not this project.
Oh, I thought this was open mic, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Well, in a way,
Oh, I'm
it's not
sorry.
open mic, it's just relative to the
It's
to
really
the
about
MLK
this
corridor.
project, but we'll get you in a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
No
sorry, I
problem.
just walked
No,
in, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Are there any other comments from the public about this particular project, which is the MLK Corridor project presented by Centennial Management? Okay, go ahead. Sure.
I have a question for Centennial, the management group, whoever can or cannot answer. When we were discussing this initially a year ago, and we put a hard date on the calendar that said we wanted to have bids back at this point, and we want to be moving on this point, and that was very, in a sense, a good thing because we were putting dates on a calendar set when we wanted things done by, in a sense. So I've asked this question, but it's just really wearing me out because I don't like more of the same. That's just me personally, and I don't think I think that the project as it is can be better. So I have a question, and Mike's gonna rub his head a little, but how close are we to getting the property that separates the two properties? The young man here said that what's in yellow was the time expired on a deal, and we have to go back and renegotiate those deals for those pieces of land. The scaled map, the bird's eye
With the
view,
yellow and the orange.
I'm getting it.
that one right there. So the 4 properties in yellow were under a contract at one point, but the contracts expired. So did we ever engage in contract talks with the property that separates, that piece there? Yeah.
Yes.
And are they just non-progressive?
They wanted, I believe, and I have to go back to my memory, they wanted just for the land, it came out to $200,000 per unit. So it was prohibitively expensive. That didn't include the building structure or anything. It's just 200. By the time you paid them what they wanted and you figured the additional density you could get, I believe it was 200,000 a unit it came out to.
Okay, wasn't worth it.
But correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're still asking, whether we purchase those particular pieces or not, we're still planning on moving forward with this community. So it's not going to stop us from moving forward. We're hoping that they can participate and we can purchase the land at a fair price, but we're still planning on moving forward.
Thank you.
Anthony, you said that you thought the project could be better. What does that mean to you? That's what the board is looking for.
Trying to get me a case of foot and mouth disease, but
Want something to sell.
I just
Continuity of space probably is
the
one
fair
of
thing
them,
was
but what could be better? What is it that you think could make it better?
not to disrespect anyone or anything, and not to be disrespectful, but my opinion of some of the business practices that take place in that space don't necessarily promote conducive future economic impact of the potential redevelopment.
So that's not the project itself. That sounds like something that exists today that's not part of the project. How can the project be better? That's what we need to know. Is there something about the project? Is it the size? Is it the shape? Is it the uses? What would make it better? You said it could be
The only
better.
thing that, based on, and I felt the same way, but I know that there's a scale. I've gone through it enough in different municipalities to know that parking spaces are scale, would be the assurance of a parking garage, but that changes everything. So that's it. But I get scales, Mike.
So a parking garage would mean more units. That could bring more units.
Yep.
It would, okay. So more units would be better for you. Is that fair to say?
If we could go higher,
We can
but,
go higher.
you know,
Not worry about, let's not worry about higher because you have restrictions on height for buildings.
yes.
What you want are more units.
Oh,
So
more
density
units,
is
higher
not
density.
necessarily equate to height, but if you have limited space, then your parking, the more units, the more parking spaces, the higher cost. Structured parking is somewhere around $25,000 a space. Surface parking is about $5,000 to $6,000 a space. So 100 spaces in a parking garage is a very expensive parking lot versus 100 spaces on a smaller. Now, of course, I think you always want to try to drive density as high as you can. A 500 Ocean didn't get close to what they could have done there because of size, cost, and space. Really, that's what it comes down to. But, so units would be something that could be better. More units would be better. So if there's a way to bring more units to it,
Impact more families in a
okay.
positive way.
Good, that's. It's good, so you can explore the costs of what even a second floor or third floor parking would be to get units. Whether you explore that, if it's cost prohibitive or if it isn't, but, okay, good.
Okay, seeing no more public comment, do we have any more comments from the board?
Yeah, you guys,
Sorry, looking at this, and we are living in Florida, I see that people, possibly park 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars out from possibly the residence. I'm looking at the lower portion, and then possibly above. Is there any opportunity, because summertime it rains and it's hot, I've seen places that have canopy covers for covered parking, so that, if they're bringing groceries home in a deluge, it's not a long way to get to the building. And then maybe, if there's a covered path to the building, that's,
You can ask our
but that
folks
might
over
not be as expensive as, a covered parking structure.
Well, anything's possible, but right now the project isn't calling for covered parking. Most of our communities just have parking lots with outdoor parking, and it seems to be very sufficient, and we've never gotten any complaints.
Sure.
I've got down covered
Okay.
parking. I mean, that's the point of tonight.
Over sidewalk, I guess, that might be the other thing, yeah.
Consider that what we're designing.
I think we need,
I really like the building. I think it's, in looking at the pictures and the images, I think it looks a lot better than some of the stuff I've seen over at Renaissance Commons.
I think what we need to do is make a recommendation as to probably the ordering of what we think about the financing options.
I thought well,
And I'm concerned, Mike, about the first option in terms of the budgeting that we have. Do we have the first option requires the tax increment revenue from the CRA, and given the money that the CRA's got with the town center, do we have that kind of financing available? Project money available? Yeah.
Sorry. It's, she's going to pull it up here in a minute, but you have it regardless. There's about 1 million, maybe, okay, so.
Well, you got to have 1.2 million to fund it to begin with.
So we have set aside for the MLK corridor and future projects a total of about 2.4 million. They have already requested at least the 1.2 million for the matching funds for the low-income housing tax credit program, and you'd want it for the sale program. So that is your corridor line, the second line in our project fund. That money we have available to meet that local government match now.
Got it. What about every other year?
Right, so then if we spent that this year, and I don't know that they would need the 873 beginning in October, right? So it would probably be the following year. And if you look at our, because as you look at next year, if you wanted to fund the neighborhood policing unit, if you want to do the caring center relocation project, it leaves you a balance of 989,000. So if that were needed next year, you're right, that leaves about 30 or 40,000 left, right? Maybe 80,000. So in the following year, in the 20 to 21 year, the CRA, a few of our existing debt line items fall off, and we end up with a larger budget of 2.9 to effectively do projects with. So if you looked at that 2.9 million 2 years from now, and you wanted to take 873 out of there, that would leave you the balance for other projects. So it's physically, financially, fiscally doable if that's a priority project, and if that's a consideration for the board, there would be funding available to do that. It would limit your other projects, but I know that the priority, obviously, with this corridor in the heart of Boynton is, but it would probably not be needed from October to October. It would be in the following year, I'm thinking, right? By the time you design it. And if you get the 9%, then if that's what the board chooses and they win, then we don't have to worry about any funding. If you were going to use option 1, that's how I would space it out to fiscal year 2020-21. And then you would have funding. Mm-hmm. Priority, is there an order of possible funding that you like better than the other order?
I guess I look at it as that it limits us significantly over the next 15 years.
Would that be option 3?
It would certainly be my option 3.
Mm-hmm. So you're on the right track, how you're trying to approach the bullet.
Like, based on what Centennial's saying is that, we're not hindered by applying for the 9% credits by already having Ocean Breeze East. So that would be my first option. So my second option would be the sale and from my perspective, and I don't know about the demographics, but I would think we would want to go sale with the workforce. Not limit us to senior housing, the 80 to 120, because we already have the Ocean Breeze East, which is 30 to 80. I probably would just limit those two financing arrangements for right now and see where that gets us, because you can go through 2 rounds of that.
That's your recommendation? Which is, that follows the line of Ocean Breeze East. When you guys approved that, you allowed for 2 with the ability to accelerate it with turf if you wanted to do
Right.
that, you know?
And then we can revisit it, and we find out next May, right? Don't you find out in March? February, March?
A year from now, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so a year from now. So we'd find out by next March, we'd know, and then we could make that final decision if we wanted to go with after we find out. We can always do number 3. But I'd rather not limit us until we found out from the other 2. That would be my...
Put it in the form of a recommendation, which is similar, but.
Feel like we've done it before, where Twee may say a whole bunch of stuff and then I come back and.
So you're the first recommend, oh, you want to do it, Tom?
Well, I think what we heard is that
That's great.
we're recommending that
Nine percent.
with, the assumption that we'll make it, find out,
You grab that one, there you go. Thank you.
recommend option 2.
Well, I think we can do 2
then-
and 3 at the same time, can't we?
Yes, yes.
So we can do 2 and 3 using workforce for number 3.
Right. And then if 9% is approved, that's the one that we would prefer.
Right.
Fall back to 3 and turf is the last resort.
Well, we would wait and see what happens and then revisit.
Agreed.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Board Chair, you mentioned giving input on the number of application rounds or attempts to receive or apply for that funding. Did the board have a recommendation on that, or just leave that to the CRA board? Where you said 2 cycles or 3 cycles or 1 cycle? Do you have a recommendation on how many to give them or suggest?
I think we'll just wait till 1 cycle, see where it goes
Okay.
next year.
Okay. Very good. That's the order.
Did anybody have a recommendation as to the site plan? I mean, other than what you really want, Anthony? But, I mean,
Not over till it's over.
It's not over till it's over and everybody knows why.
That's an easy one. Okay.
we thought it was...
Okay. Great. I
No
have
changes.
all the comments.
Okay, other than the comments from the community, and I thought they were great in terms of the,
Yes.
the other things we thought about, the clinic,
Okay.
farmer's market kind of ideas, in that open space, that's a nice idea. Okay, so we'll move on. So our
Thank you,
next-
everyone.
Yes, thank you. Our next agenda item.
Excuse me. I just had a quick question. Is that deck going to be made available to the public, the presentation that they had for Centennial?
It is on our website.
Oh, it's already on the website? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
If you go to our agenda for this meeting, it's on our website. So our next item on our agenda is the discussion and consideration of the CRA's Cottage District.
Yes, Board Chair and board members, the CRA Board provided a new assignment to the CRAB Board to receive recommendations and input from the board and the public on the discussion for single-family housing on the CRA's Cottage District site. We have, the board selected Neighborhood Renaissance Inc. as the developer proposal to negotiate and to further vet out the plan and the presentation and the proposal that they submitted for the RFP, RFQ. The Cottage District is located and bounded by Seacrest Boulevard on the west side, Northeast 1st Street on the east side, and northeast 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue on the north and south. And there's an image there on the board. The CRA owns all of the parcels except for the 2 gray parcels on 4th and the gray parcels on the gray buildings on Seacrest. The task that the board gave to in the RFP was to provide options for single family, to provide a cottage-style architecture or of old Florida-style architecture, home ownership, not rental, and to provide a range of units, ideally somewhere between 28 and 34. The proposals or the presentation from Neighborhood Renaissance this evening will take you through their conceptual plan. We have spent numerous meetings with CRA staff and the staff of Neighborhood Renaissance going over the conceptual site plan. Again, this is not a site plan that is approved. It is not finalized. It is a lot of work and effort trying to get as many access points and what have you as we can. So whether there's a cul-de-sac or whether there's the street on one side or the other is less of a concern this evening. The concerns this evening that we would like to get from you is, does the CRAB board recommend leaning toward option A or option B site plan as just a general, suggestion? We want to analyze the financial impact to the CRA and provide a recommendation on that. And if there are any recommendations from the discussion this evening on potential development terms, and if not, that may be something that comes back to you during the process of negotiating an actual document. We do not have an agreement in place at all. We have what you'll hear tonight and a lot of input from the city staff and CRA staff and the staff of the developer. So with that, if you'd like to hear the presentation, I see Michael Picard at the podium.
Good evening, board. I'm Michael Picard with Neighborhood Renaissance. We're the proposers on this project. It's a pleasure to be here to present to you and get your feedback and ideas on how to develop the Cottage District. Neighborhood Renaissance was founded in 1992. We're a community-based development corporation that started out in Northwood, and we've since expanded into Palm Beach County. We've completed a number of projects, some model blocks in Northwood area of West Palm Beach, and more recently construction of 13 homes in Westgate Belvedere CRA area in the county. We acquired with NSP funds 76 distressed dwellings, renovated them, and hold them for rental to family households earning incomes from 50% of the AMI and below, as well as 120% AMI and below. Overall, we've built, sold, renovated over 180 homes in the history of Neighborhood Renaissance. Our goal is to provide, to strengthen neighborhoods through pride of home ownership and removal of blight. With me tonight is our Executive Director, Terry Murray, and Carlos Toledo is our Development Manager, and I'm Michael Picard, I'm the Director of Real Estate Development. Our board is community-based. Some of our homeowners are on our board, as well as anybody in Palm Beach County. We have a board of, I think, 12 community members. And again, we're a nonprofit. Our current projects on the left is the Art Lofts, West Village Art Lofts in Lake Worth, where we built for sale 8 live-work townhouses for artists and creative households, as well as a 2,000 square foot retail commercial building on the corner of F Street and Lucerne in downtown Lake Worth. 5 households have moved in, and we have the other 3 townhouses under contract. And this was done in partnership with the Lake Worth CRA. They donated the land and $700,000 to help write down the cost of the townhomes to these artists. And on the right-hand side is a 36-unit apartment development community at Lake Forest and Florida Mango Road next to Lake Clark Shores. They're all 2-bedroom, 2-bath with in-unit laundry that'll be available for lease to families earning less than 120% of the area median income. And it sits on a beautiful lake that's right behind it, and occupancy is expected to start in August of 2019. This was funded partially by the sale of some of the NSP homes that we purchased and rented for 4 years while waiting for the markets to come back, which the housing market did from the recession, the Great Recession. So we raised the equity from the sale of some of those homes to owner occupants with deed restrictions that they be owner occupied for a period of a minimum of 30 years. In the cottage district, we're proposing, let me jump ahead a little bit. This is close to our original proposal for the RFP. We proposed originally over 34 townhomes and single-family homes. After discussion with staff in the city and meetings with the board, it's turned into all single-family homes for sale with a mix of 3 to 4 bedrooms, and all have 1-car garages. They'll be priced in the high 2s, around $260,000 to $270,000, which is affordable to working families at working households. They're going to have a old Florida kind of beachy design with front porches. We're trying, with this plan, we tried to minimize the amount of garages facing the exterior streets. Just so, I'm sure you know where this is. It's on between 4th and 5th Avenues Northeast, our streets and avenues, and 1st Street on the east. The homes will be built to be sustainable and energy efficient, and we will have them certified either by Florida Green Building Standards or National Building Green Standards, which we're familiar with building. That's pretty much all that we do. The site is very walkable. It's going to be 4 blocks from the new town center, and I think it's going to be a very desirable place for singles and young families to move into to Boynton Beach. Just a factoid is that west or east of 95, there has not been a home built and sold for less than $300,000 since, I think, 2016. It's been a while since there's been something affordable, let alone being built. The public benefits are you will have approximately 34 new households. These are within the Boynton Beach transit-oriented district, so hopefully we'll get a train station one of these days. It's also very convenient to 95 if you need to get in your car and you work in Delray, Boca, or up in West Palm Beach. The real estate tax base will increase by up to around $10 million if we do build 34 homes. And during construction, it'll create some economic development. We'll have goals to hire local subcontractors, as well as a program and goals to do job fairs and try and hire local citizens to be employees of these subcontractors when the positions become available. Right now, the contractors are very much in need of skilled and semi-skilled labor. And we're working with the Boynton Beach Faith-Based Community Development Corporation, who's worked in Boynton Beach to develop the program, do the outreach, as well as monitor our successes at it. These new households being workforce, somewhere up to 120 to 140%, nothing set in sand, nothing is set at this point, will bring households with expendable income that can support the local businesses, services, dining, and entertainment businesses in the local area. It also will convert a blighted lot into a beautiful community of homes. Also, part of the plan is to do streetscapes with new street trees, sidewalks, curbs, and street lighting on 4th, 1st, and 5th. And we also think there's an opportunity on 4th Street, which has a 30-foot right-of-way, to add an additional 10 feet and make that into a more workable street with the sidewalk. Right now, 30 feet is basically a drainage swale and a drive lane. So Plan A, which is close to what we originally proposed, let's see if this works. It doesn't work. Over here, I'm pointing at the board. It has a 0.2 acre pocket park open to the public. It'll have landscaping, walkways, and benches. On 5th Street, now the battery's not working there. The way we've oriented the houses with the driveways in the back, there's 10 parking spaces that'll be created for guests and use of the homes on the north side of 5th. We have an interior street so that we can build more homes on the interior lots, and that substantially increases the amount of density we can get here. These homes will be between living area 1,300 to probably 1,700 square feet. As well, I will show you, let's just jump to some of the facades of the homes. The one in the upper left is a 2-story home, and hopefully you can see that there's a front porch that does have a garage in the front. The other 3 from the right-hand side, those are single-family homes. The one unit C, or unit type C, has a rear-loaded garage. So you have a nice, you don't have the driveway, you don't have the garage facing the street. And those are all 3-bedroom, 1-car garage homes. And these will also be energy efficient and sustainable. Moving backwards. We met with the city of Boynton Beach and the utilities, and they asked us to study another plan, which is Plan B. This is one of the things we're trying to figure out which would be the better of the two and most appealing. On this one, they asked us to incorporate a concept of a larger green space for use by the homeowners in this community and eliminate the public park, as well as to have a cut-through street that goes from 4th to 5th. A few of the things that it's a nice compact plan. It's good for an urbanized area. It utilizes the land very well. However, it eliminates the amount of street parking. All these homes now have driveways and garages facing Fifth Avenue. This street provides a convenient way for somebody to come down to Fourth so that they can make a left turn. There's a median here at Fifth, and it has 3 homes which will have to access their driveways from Seacrest. So that's one of the discussions I'm hoping we can get into tonight. And then, okay, this is just a proposed mix and sales price of the homes. It has the square footage, the price per square foot, and the total sales price of each of the proposed homes. In actuality, we will be pre-selling the homes and let the homeowners pick which model they want, because not everybody wants a 3-bedroom, and they may not want it on any particular lot. So it'll be just like a regular home development where the lots will be prepared to accept the models of homes, and you'll have a choice. The buyers will have a choice. And then as far as affordability, the RFP asked that these homes be affordable to families or households earning 120% of AMI. And working with staff is we wanted to just get more opinions on, do we want more affordable which means that they can afford less of they would need more of a subsidy, whether we get it from the county, the federal government, or the city has some programs to assist home buyers, and we can get into those details if you want. And then finally, this is the development cost budgets, which I know some of you had spoke at the CRA board meeting. And the way this is laid out, the first block, there's 4 blocks. The first block is the actual building of the homes. The next block, the second from the left, is the cost of the on-site, which is everything inside the sidewalk. It's not working. Inside the sidewalk, so the internal streets, all the internal utilities, landscaping, and that sort of a thing. And then the third block of numbers is the off-sites, everything from the back of sidewalk out into the street. We're meeting with the city and the water utility. They've given us what they would like us to pay for, and that includes upgrading and replacing some of their old infrastructure, water and sewer lines, and repaving, and more extensive curbing and sidewalk and gutter. The bottom line from the summary memo is that the project as it sits here right now and presented to you, the CRA would be contributing $1,120,000 worth of land, and then would need approximately $2 million of contribution from the CRA, the city, and the utilities. Right now, we're working with staff to figure that out, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, to see if it's worth providing some workforce housing, new housing in Boynton Beach, and to get something going in the Cottage District. And then finally, our schedule. We can start, if we were able to start in March, we'd have to do a site plan approval, do our infrastructure plans, build the infrastructure inside this to prepare the lots for homes, and the first home would start construction in December of 2019 if we could really stay on a tight schedule. And I think that's the last slide. Yes. So, open for comments, please.
I wanted to make sure I understood the construction cost at the end, because I think my copy has a bunch of hash marks where it says overall total.
Which page are you on?
The four
Oh, that one,
blocks.
okay. The cost, okay.
Maybe I can maybe use the bigger one.
It's the one up there.
Oh, there we go. It's the 11 million overall total.
Oh, I see, yeah, it didn't print.
But the big one did. The big one did. I'm sorry, I didn't see the big one. So the overall total, does that include the 3,177,000? The total CRA contribution?
Yes. If you look at the very lower right box, there's some yellow highlighting. To get from the 11 million, I have just hash marks too, so I'm not sure what exactly the 11 million is.
Where it says overall total, it's 11,173,000, but
Right.
you've got hash marks, so do I. But the big,
Because the column's not big enough.
I know.
I know.
But the big one, the column is big enough.
It
So
works.
but I'm just wondering, that 11,173,000 where the hash marks are, that includes the 3,177,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I just pulled out of the total, the CRA contribution.
Okay.
To make it easier to find, you know.
Yeah, essentially, you know, new homes, if you looked at them, they're selling for 325 and up, and we're trying to price these to the market at 260. So, you know, they do a lot of grading and infrastructure out in the suburbs, but unfortunately, we have to do about the same amount and also support off-site construction as well.
So, okay, so,
And of the three, of the 3 million in total CRA contribution, the value of the land, which they are asking, or we would be asked to contribute at zero, is,
Sure.
I wanted to include the value because it is an appraised value, but of cash, it would be roughly 2 million, and, you know, 2,050,000. The total contribution, including land, I have at that 3.1. So I just want to make sure.
And that's how the buyer gets the subsidy, because of the CRA money?
Correct.
So
That's the
so when I go
intent.
back to this page over here, the buyer subsidy, that's the CRA money?
To keep the pricing low and to keep the units affordable, yes, because
my
if-
question.
yes. And if we need to provide a future spreadsheet that pulls out exactly how that would work, but when you looked at your AMI sheet, which was the income and pricing and then subsidy, you can see that obviously the lower the income, the more additional
Bigger the
assistance
subsidy.
on top of the assistance you're providing. So I believe it cuts off about 100% of median income from the 100 to 120. That income range should be enough to purchase the home without needing additional assistance in between the mortgage and the purchase price, which at this point, we don't have any additional funding other than, well, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but that would be a requirement or some other program.
We were encouraged to put this out there because it is a CRA project, and it's also our goal to not only serve 120% families, but like I say, we serve a lot of 50% and below. Is that if we were to try and provide homes, some of the homes between 80 and 100% AMI, and I'm on this schedule
Right,
here.
that's the page I'm on.
To get the sales price, they can afford $221,000 of cash down payment and mortgage, which leaves a gap of $43,000. And if we were to sell them to families that earn 80% to 60%, that gap is 107,000. Neighborhood Renaissance has been very successful, and we've gotten a lot of, applied for a lot of assistance and been able to get it to help our buyers. For instance, at the Art Lofts, we applied to the county and got second mortgages or assistance from the county of $133,000 per unit for 4 of the artists. And that's just an example. But we've worked with other cities, and you know, if we went forward with this and you really want, we would not turn away somebody who had about an award of SHIP or home, but we could also make applications to make more of the units more affordable.
So let me ask you, what happens on resale? So they buy the house and they've gotten this subsidy because, so they've purchased a house and gotten the subsidy. So what happens on resale?
On the ones that have subsidy, it depends on the program. Just for instance, the county, I think now all their programs are 30 years. And some of them, if you sell in year 10, you'd have 20 years left of affordability. And some...
Do they have to sell to somebody in the same AMI?
Yeah, and
okay.
But there's also, there's so much variety. Some of them, it's just a silent second, and the obligation is if you pay us all the money back, then you can sell it to whoever you want.
Okay.
But that's not really our goal. And
Who's
like to
us?
know
Who's us? Us, the
Neighborhood
CRA?
Renaissance.
Us?
Neighborhood Renaissance is to make housing affordable for a long period of time. So we're asking, is that something that the CRA ought to be asking us to do?
I don't understand.
Make them affordable for more than just the first home buyer.
No, I agree, and that's why I'm asking.
And we also like to see long-term home ownership and not being able to sell it to an investor.
Exactly, I don't want to flip these
So
houses.
sometimes the federal rules may say one thing and the obligation could be just paid off, but we will put a deed restriction on and say it has to be owner occupied for 20, 30 years.
So on the option where they pay it off, does the CRA get back the subsidy?
It depends on if the CRA were to put up the money. If we were to get it, say, from the county and it was a federal program, the money would go back to the county.
So it goes back to the providing program?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It can be structured in a number of different ways, even if it was CRA money. I believe that the city gets home or SHIP.
That's where
I'll let the guru
that's where I'm
talk.
headed. Who's getting the money back if they sell it?
No, the city of Boynton is an entitlement for state SHIP dollars. And if your local housing assistance plan has a down payment assistance and a buyer came to buy a house and qualified, they could use that in the development. And no, the city does not have a home program, federal home program. But I think the point is that it's really the board's choice, the community's choice, what price points they want to subsidize. Because the project cost goes up to the city if you put up the down payment assistance. But if you don't, we can serve 100 to 140 without any additional subsidy. But we have a track record where we can bring additional resources for the buyer over and above what it takes to build the units. I'm sorry, Terry Murray, Executive Director, Neighborhood Renaissance.
Terry with an I.
Okay, so let me ask Mike a question. So Mike, this proposal is with the CRA putting in the land, which we've been trying to do this on this land. We wanted to contribute this land. This is nothing new.
Right.
We want to do this on this land desperately. And then putting in another $2,057,000. So my only question is, if we do this and somebody wants to sell, because flipping this house is not an option for me.
Right, it's not an option for us either.
So, but if they sell it to somebody who's also within the same, you know, AMI, then to me, it just rolls over and rolls
Correct.
over and rolls over.
That's
But
what
if
we
they
would
don't,
propose.
we should get the subsidy back, is
Right.
where I'm headed.
But yes, but we're going to restrict the sale to an affordable buyer. It won't be that you could sell it to someone that makes 500% of median income. It's an affordable project, so it can stay affordable. And there's deed restriction, there's other ways to do that, but.
Okay, so is that where we
Yeah,
want to go?
I
mean-
don't think I think that might be a little too deep in the grass.
Okay.
But the part that is appropriate at this point is, we want to restrict, or we don't want to restrict this to continue to be affordable. So at this point, we'll work out the detail and present those, how we would do it later. We want to know, in this case, it sounds certainly like you're a proponent of, let's keep it affordable as long as we can. However that vehicle looks, we can talk about that at some point, but that's the vehicle we want you to create.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay,
Right?
okay,
And we don't want it to be rental. That was something in the RFP.
absolutely.
And that I think what this, and what Terry was saying and what this slide depicts very well is that you are provided a range from 80 to 140, that there's 40% of median income there at the higher end, can afford the same price house, but without any assistance. So the price isn't going up for the person that makes more money, it's just more affordable.
Just more affordable, right.
And the person making 80 to 100, which is the same person that we talked about that might be renting the apartment on MLK, is now able to buy a house in the Cottage District. And if they were at 90% of median, they would need additional assistance to bring the cost of the house down. That's really what you can, either you put in and drop the price, which then affects your appraisals around the community. So what has been for years, since the early 90s or mid 90s, is your down payment assistance from agencies like us or the county or the city at the closing. So the price always stays the same, the appraisals always stay the same. It's a back end assistance, like Uncle
Okay.
Bob coming in with 40 grand down payment.
All right, so what you're suggesting, and I think well, that's where I was headed, although I was thinking that, ultimately you hope that the neighborhood goes up, and so ultimately people above the AMI
That is the
would
discussion.
buy, and then you got to,
Then you've lost the affordability. So the principal discussion is, how long do you want it to be affordable? And if you are trying to keep workforce affordable housing available to the.
Then you leave the deed
Then you have to
restriction
do
on.
that. If you want a one-shot deal and then the market can do what it wants to do, that's another principle.
or you just leave the deed restriction on. So for now, we can stay there.
It sounds
I
like
got
you, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the next question, I guess, or the other part is Plan A or Plan B? And so that is the other, any comments about that?
Could the numbers, I think you were suggesting, you want it to be able to go up. Could we consider a cost of living, as things move, allow that number to move?
Well, the price can go up, I guess. How does that happen?
You can, there's a way to put in a formula that allows, well, everything's going to follow the AMI, and everything would follow your appraisal at that point, right? If the house value is now 270, you just have to try to find someone within the range of affordability that can purchase the house at 270. And now everybody's income has changed, so it might even be the same exact income percentage. But we can work on that detail, because it's not a land trust. We don't have, obviously there's concerns about equity, and if all the prices around the neighborhood are now 400,000 and this one's kind of staying affordable, somebody might say, oh, well, I want to make 100,000 on the house. But you couldn't have been in the house if you didn't have the affordability to begin with.
So we could just maintain it as affordable housing, and we just let it go as it goes?
That's how you buy into it. It's disclosed.
Okay.
They accept that as they come in.
So I guess the issue is the design and the funding. Are we happy with that? So we're back to the design.
I can tell you that, well, I'll let you give input.
Personally, I like Plan B. The Plan A doesn't really have a secure backyard with people parking behind it. And then it was mentioned that parking was for guests, and then the people living along that street, I mean, I don't know if they walk all the way around the corners to get in, or where they cut through yards. Are those parking spaces just guests for, that particular street? So I sort of like.
Why don't you ask the developer guy, because I think he's going to tell you how that works.
I think that's a good suggestion. For getting from the street parking to the house's interior and to the south.
Talking about Plan B.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Plan B.
He's talking
because
about
of
Plan
the
B.
issues with Plan A.
Well, those driveways are rear, if your question was how do they get to their door, right? The rear load on the north side there where you see the white lines coming to this interior road, their front door faces, but
That's
their
the driveway.
driveway and their parking
You're
lot.
looking at it opposite.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where the white box is where the driveway
That's
is.
the driveway.
So you have kind of like Abacoa or other communities where you have the door facing the front, and then there's an alley behind.
Okay.
In this particular case, we're creating a two-way alley behind, and we can't get all of the. A vision was to have everything face the front and rear loaded, is what it's called, rear loading. And we wanted to do that because it's a very kind of typical cottagey old style where you got the front, you have more of a front yard than more of a backyard.
Right.
But because the block is a block and a half, it is not a typical size block. It's platted almost literally twice the size of any other block in that area. And one of the concerns that the city and the staff and Neighborhood Renaissance has with B is that it is still a normal block east-west.
That's B.
And this middle road now becomes a bit of a freeway and a lot quicker access, less neighborhoody. And the question would be from the city and from the developer, if from Seacrest to First is the same on every block, why are we putting a road in the middle of a half a block in a residential neighborhood? That would be the concern. It looks less enclavey and more, again, just a kind of an odd road in the middle. The other point that we should make, and this is something that we as staff have been kind of battling the city with, in Plan A, if Teresa will go back, the RFP, what the CRA board suggested and what the CRA board suggested was that this northeast corner of 5th and 1st would be provided, the developer and the proposer had to design the project to provide a public space, green space, in that corner. I mean, you were very specific in where it was going to be and who was going to be able to access it. In Site Plan B, you've created this public space in the middle of everybody's private home, and it would be very difficult now to restrict access to the entire neighborhood behind your house as opposed to that public space outside of the perimeter of this little development. Not to mention that there's an 8-acre park across the street at Sarah Sims Park. So you don't need a lot of park space here because you really want people to take advantage of the brand new park that we're revitalizing. But there's a bus stop for kids at that corner, so it gives them a place to get out of the street and wait for the bus if you have a little green space under Site Plan A.
That was the whole point. It was a safety issue.
It was, and again, if you put it in the middle of these houses, who takes care of it? Is the city going to take care of it? Is it a city park? It just, whichever you recommend is what you recommend, or whichever you like is what you like. But this is the most direct response to your RFP requirements that is presented to you tonight. There's this road that goes behind those three houses. I'm going to say it now because I know it's going to come up, I'm sure. The top three, you have this road that just kind of dead ends, or it might be a roundabout or a cul-de-sac there. We've already discussed flipping those three houses to face Fifth and have the road just curve there and not have those units access from the back. Under no circumstances is that road continuing through anybody's private property. That obviously would not be allowed, nor would happen. So it really just becomes, now the other issue, more than the neighboring property owner, is the roll-off and roll-on of garbage or the pickup of trash. Now the garbage truck has to reverse and back up instead of continuing through the development. So it's as much for the waste management folks as it is just for appearance. It gives a little more green space, because if it flips around, those lots will be bigger. That pavement now becomes grass or trees, so it's fine. We can make it work that way. Just wanted to point that out.
So that's going to not be a street there? That's going to
Right, just imagine that gone for purposes of our discussion tonight. We could probably put a
gonna be like
green
a
box
cul-de-sac?
over it. I'm sorry?
It's going to be like a cul-de-sac right
It
there?
will be a backyard. Just take it away. The turn, if we could put a green box over that little L, yeah.
So they would be more like the houses on the right-hand side?
Correct. They would flip, so your white driveway would be on the top.
On the top.
And the next guy would have a front driveway, a rear driveway.
Yeah, so the first three
that's
houses
all.
would be
We
that
just
way
flip
and
them,
then...
reverse them.
Oh, okay.
So I don't want you to get hung up on why that road just kind of ends there.
That was a question the last
Yeah,
time.
I know it was. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to get
Which is
that out
still
of
the
the way.
question now. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Does that then free up another lot there if you don't do that?
It could. That's something we would, there's other things that would happen as a result of that, obviously. The other thing that the road like this does, as opposed to Site Plan A, if you notice, it's a lot harder to go fast on this site than the one that's just straight through.
Right.
So it's
Well,
a
that was
beautiful
my
traffic.
concern.
It's a traffic calming, neighborhood calming. It's really a great
Right,
practice. So.
well, your description of what that parking is on the top.
Yes, sir.
As well as the park on the corner with the bus stop, addresses my concern that I thought that was street parking behind someone's house.
Yes, sir.
And the front of their house was where most people,
Right.
their driveway, and then they enter the house, and then that would be the backyard. That's the other way around, so
The other way around,
Good.
right.
That's what I wanted to
now
tell you,
much
yeah.
more in favor of Plan A.
Yeah. Do we have any comments from the public on this particular agenda item?
Hey, Linda.
Hi there.
Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. I know some of you aren't aware, my family owns the properties you're seeing there on the Seacrest side. So you see the three gray boxes. That's my family's property. We've owned it for 90 some odd years. And we have the old historic houses that are there. Yeah, right where she's pointing. Our big concern, and the city's been great about dealing with this, CRA's been great, and I've got to say the developers have been a pleasure to deal with, is protecting the people from this neighborhood imposing and going on our property, especially where that road dead ends. And I love that idea you guys have come up with of maybe flipping the houses, because that would solve a big problem. But I would, of course.
Idea?
Yeah, and even down on the bottom part, adding more trees at the little bend, just so people aren't tempted to run through. We have had somebody drive through our property and knock one of our houses off its bearings, because these old houses sit up. I'm not sure if you're aware. I'll say what I said back at the commission meeting last time. I am all Plan A. It's organic, it's beautiful. As the person who owns the property next door, this is the one I and my family would like to see have happen. I do have a question on this other middle park area. Is that meant to have open space, like for fields for kids to go play in? Or is it meant to be like the other park where it's shaded and just maybe a couple little playground pieces? Or what's going on with that? Do we know? Sorry.
Point it out for everybody so they know exactly what you're talking about. There's a green space there. It's passive green space. It most likely will be dry retention. It'll still be accessible if you want to go walk your dog or play Frisbee with your kids, but during a heavy rain, it would fill up and hold water for a period of time. It won't have any improvements like a gazebo or a playground.
So it's just grass?
Open space, yeah. Fresh air.
Okay, thank you. Sounds even better. That means we can plant more trees. My other question, or I guess my statement would be, is you're asking, what we want as far as affordability and what, our input is for the neighborhood. This is meant, my understanding, and my big push for years now is this is the crown jewel of this neighborhood. This is beautiful. We're putting in beautiful houses next to my family's beautiful houses. The surrounding houses are old and beautiful. And I would much prefer to see the 80% AMI on up, because I think you're going to end up with people who will be able to afford to maintain these houses. That will drive the older houses across the street. It will bring in people who can afford to improve those, which will do nothing but raise the property values throughout the whole neighborhood. And I do not want to see this ever, not be affordable for people, but I think it's a driving factor for neighborhood improvement. And I think neighborhood improvement is a good goal, because whether you are obscenely wealthy or just Joe average working person, I'm a teacher, I understand the pay thing, but I think everyone should be striving to make their homes beautiful. And I think something like this, given the right mix of pay in there, I think it will encourage everyone to make the neighborhood that much nicer, which expands and goes out, and hopefully we will be coming back at some later point and picking another neighborhood to tackle, meaning another major block, because there are a few of these really old blocks back in this neighborhood. So I'm going to say please consider Plan A, because it has organic growth, and it looks like a neighborhood that is built over time, which it did. My grandfather built all those houses that got knocked down years ago by Jerry Taylor and burnt to the ground. And, there have always been houses here. This is one of the original blocks in the city. So thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Brenda Williams, 337 Northeast 24th Avenue, Boynton, 33435. I don't know if you mentioned the square footage of the houses that you going to build, because I thought I heard like 1,300 to 1,700 square feet. Is that accurate?
He's behind you.
Is that accurate as far as the square footage? Okay, now, and I also heard you mention something about having people take like a second mortgage to help with the down payment assistance or something?
No second mortgage.
Well, I heard that. He said that. Right, the assistance would be considered a second mortgage, which got us in the trouble that we got into when the housing market
No
crashed.
second mortgage.
Because people were
There's
getting
no second mortgage,
mortgages,
ma'am.
and then they did second mortgage. I
Silent
heard
second.
that.
It's a silent second. It's not payment.
It's not paid. There's no payment.
Well, you didn't say that, there was no payment. You just said getting a second mortgage to help with the people that couldn't afford the down payment. That was what I heard. Now, if that was incorrect, then you correct me if I heard that wrong. Because sometimes you sell a person a house and then they can't afford it. And that's what caused the market to crash last time, because people were put in houses that they really couldn't afford, and then gave them adjustable rate mortgages. And then when the rate adjusted, it was sort of like out of their league, and that's
No,
what caused
that's
it
not
to-
what this is.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what I also don't like is the fact of these one-car garages. Because where would someone park their second car? where does it leave space for a second car? And the same thing happened over on Northeast 4th with those houses they built over there. The people park their second car on the side of the road that you drive through, so now you only have a one-way drive. Because if I'm coming into the development, your car is parked in the street, basically. Now I gotta go around there to come around, and then if a car is coming this way, you know, it could be a crash. I don't like the one-car developments. And I don't see any development being done west of I-95 with a one-car parking. That's my issue.
Okay, thank you.
Alexandra Wilson. So I'm with Miss Brenda. I would like to see more two-car garages or more parking space in the houses. I do, however, like concept B. I think it's more of a usable for the citizens. And can we also look into more two-bedroom homes, townhomes, affordable townhomes where they're attached? And can we also lean towards more affordable homes? I heard the price that was mentioned. It was like 270,000. Can we make it into like 160, 240? I understand this is a new development, but if we're trying to attract, like I said, if we're trying to attract more working class college students, 270, that's a lot of money. And if I'm graduating out of college, I'm not trying to move to Boynton Beach to pay 270. You know, so can we look at it more affordable for housing, home ownership housing for the areas?
Mark here, George 248 Main Boulevard. The CRA has been trying to do land assembly with this since 2003. It has gone out to RFP 4 times since that time. You are blessed to have Neighborhood Renaissance stepping up and doing this. Plan A makes the most sense. For a neighborhood, for safety, from a design standpoint, this is something that we have needed for a long time. It is home ownership at an affordable level. It is geared to workforce, your firefighters, your police, your nurses, that have been pushed out of other markets. And now we can say, yes, we have workforce housing for affordable and for those that work. This is something that I wholeheartedly support. You've got quality people here. It's a great organization. It's been a great organization since 1992. They have a proven track record working with CRAs. Just ask Lake Worth, just ask Westgate. You can check around with the county. Their reputation in the county is impeccable. Ask anybody in the sustainability for the county or economic development for the county, and they will tell you Neighborhood Renaissance is first class. So once again, I support this 100%, and I do like the A proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Anthony's ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a recommendation to the CRA board regarding the project's design, that we go with Project A, and well, not Project A, Plan A, and ask that we look at, as Mike Simon said, because there is a new, well, will be a new 8-acre park within a 7 minutes walk. We look at a roundabout driveway potentially, or a maybe a longer tandem garage or something along those lines that would fit on the individual properties.
Kind of in the two-car garage type thought process, or
Yeah, there's a-
or is that, you're addressing that concern? Is
Yeah,
that-
either we're looking at I guess either we're looking at tandem garages, which would address two-car garages, or we're considering I guess it's a roundabout driveway, circular driveways, that so that we can get more parking in for each home.
Like,
But it's not a tandem garage.
Your tandem side by side or in front
No,
of
my
each
tandem
other?
is front to back on the garage, just like I've seen some other townhomes. So that meant that we changed the layout, just to consider.
No, of course,
Yeah.
of course. I would like to, I think that there's an important point that we should bring out, because staff, in looking at this project and thinking of things like this, you're creating on a blank slate of land, right? There were existing houses there, and they were bigger lots, and there were only, let's say, 15 of them. And we don't really want to put 15 back, but we don't, so the discussion in the site plan that you haven't been part of is how big should the lots be, right? How deep should the lots be? And all of that is important, because the more space you take up per house, the less overall houses you have. So, to the point of the two-car garage discussion, that has been something that I want you to know that staff recognizes. You could have a few two-car garage houses, and you might, like handicap parking spaces, one handicap is 2 regular spaces. If you did a two-car garage, you may lose a half of a house overall, so maybe instead of 34, you end up with 32, or instead of 32, you end up with 29. But if your recommendation is to explore a different lot spacing or lot sizes to perhaps accommodate a choice of a two-car garage and a one-car, or to find, it's going to be very hard to just say we've got enough parking outside of those garages for every car. That's going to be hard. There's no room for circular driveways, so everybody's got to be in their driveway, whether that's in front of each other or in a two-car or a side. There's also the option in some developments where they kind of have a driveway that's wide enough for 2 cars, even though there's a 1-car garage. But then that's a lot of cement, too. So I'm asking, I'm kind of pulling this out from you, the board, to find out if it's important to you to explore a little larger lot or a 2-car garage option over the sacrifice of a couple of units, because I don't think, I mean, in the big picture, 1 or 2 units or 3 units isn't going to end the world, but you have to know that in order to accommodate this vision, it has a, there's a yin and yang to both. So
I think one of the issues, Anthony, is that if you try to accommodate, if you end up with 3 houses with 2-car garages, it's not going to affect it's not going to make a difference. So the problem is that you see what I'm saying? If you've got 34 houses and 3 of them have 2-car garages,
Didn't make an impact.
it's not going to make an impact.
Right.
So, but in order to make an impact, you're going to end up with 20 houses instead of 34. Then you're not going to, you're really going to ruin the cottage district.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can go that way.
Yeah, considering after listening to Mike, it makes sense.
I understand the concern, but I just don't, you just can't get there.
I know it was mentioned that west of Boynton, there aren't any homes with less than 2 driveway spaces. And I know I personally live in a community west of Boynton where there are affordable housing units that were just built that only have either no garage or 1 parking space, and it's not even a tandem outside. So one of the things that I understand, and not just in West Boynton, there's another one that they did where they only had 1 parking space. So part of the thing about being an affordable housing unit is that you're getting one parking space, and a lot of the street parking issues can be attempted to be mitigated by HOAs or community self-management or things of that nature, or rules put in place that prior to completion of the development. So
I have a question, though, before you, let's hold the motion for a second. I have a question, Mr. Picard. Sure. Is the driveway long enough for 2 cars to go end to end or not?
The driveways, the way the lots are designed, there's only distance for 1 car. However, this comment came up from the city planning with our meeting, is we're going to endeavor to have most of the houses have 2-car driveways and a 1-car garage. So you put 2 cars in the driveway and 1 in the garage.
So the driveway is wide enough for 2 cars?
Wider, yeah.
don't look like it.
Okay.
That's what they're going to try to, wherever possible, that would be,
There's a trade-off, then you get more concrete.
which is
Okay.
what I'd said earlier.
Well, but I think that addresses the issue of parking on the
exactly.
street. That's the issue that I think was the comment from the public, is they don't like parking on the street. So if the driveway's wide enough for 2 cars, then at least you've mitigated the street parking.
It doesn't look like that right there, but
Yeah, actually,
Well, I can tell you what we did in Delray with the Seacrest neighborhood, that they created, instead of that park that's on the corner, they created parking so that people could park at the corner. Now, I'm not suggesting that's what you do here.
No.
But there are other lots where you end up trying to create these little pocket parking lots for duplexes and things to get people off the street. You shouldn't have one of those in this neighborhood.
on the upper right, if you look at the second one over, that's a pretty small parking space for 1 car. And then
I don't think it's drawn to
directly
scale.
across,
Yeah.
looks like it's
Yeah.
like it's double wide.
Right.
So
Well, I think
some of the
that's fine.
driveways look
Looks
wide
like it's
enough, and
okay.
some of them look long enough, so it's both ways. Okay,
Somebody got a
well,
little
then that
lazy
makes
on the
it-
Photoshop.
Okay, now I'm happy. Okay,
Okay.
now you
So-
can go back to your motion.
With consideration for parking.
There there is a requirement by code that each house have 2 cars minimum. Unless you go to, I think if you go up to like 4 bedrooms, you may need to add another car. So you need 3 cars for a 4-bedroom.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're good on that then.
Okay, so I make a recommendation that we go with Plan A to the CRA board regarding the project's design. We had to make a funding choice too, right?
And that we agree with the funding that's on, that
Yeah,
is
and I
as
agree with the
presented.
funding as it proceeds as right now.
As presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is consideration of equitable economic development grants.
Yes, Board Chair, the new assignment, the 3rd new assignment for the CRAB Board from the February 12th meeting of the CRA Board is for the CRAB to research the topic of economic and racial equity and determine if the CRA commercial grant programs are meeting the intended goals of the agency. And if there are any recommendations to improve or not to improve the programs as they are, to try to effectively be better, or are they meeting the goal of the agency now? So we provided you with the application and guidelines for our grants that we currently have. And I would imagine that this, or I envision this item tonight is certainly not something you're going to be able to provide a recommendation on at one meeting. I think this is one of those items that's a couple, yeah. So there it is.
Mike, why is this, was there some issue that came up that created this?
I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know, that was brought up by the board chair. I think there's as a topic of conversation now, perhaps, we're talking about building wealth in the community, we're talking about, social equities. These terms are kind of danced around quite a bit. You can see we don't track, there are certain things our grant doesn't track, and to me that shows no favoritism toward a racial or economic equity. It's based on a business. It's really not based on a male, female, blue, purple, two-headed people. It's really neutral to all of that. That's our grant now. So if you feel like that's not affecting the goal of the program to be more equitable and more divided and diversified, if it's not, and you can think of a way based on your research or discussion, find out a way to tweak it to make it more equitable, then great. And if your research and your discussion and analysis of our current programs, and if there's any information that we can give you to further assess our grants and what, we don't have a box for minority or women-owned business. We don't do any of that. We have money in, matching dollars, private sector dollars, and public dollar match. We can give you locations of where they are.
Say, one of the two attachments you gave us are the two grant applications, but what you didn't give us is a summary of what we've done in the past 5 years. I know it sounds crazy, but
that's what the meeting is for tonight. What do we have that you think you might need, and what's on the internet that you may learn that we don't have?
Are you tracking, though?
We track every single grant that we've given since 2006 or 2004.
But are you tracking who's getting them?
That's what I'm asking.
I'm tracking that you got one and that Mrs. Smith got one, but I don't have a box for the color of your skin or whether you're male or female, if that's what you're asking.
For the record, I didn't get one, but anyway.
I'm sorry?
For the record, I didn't get
one. That's right. The business in which you work got one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So what we can do is, what we have is the applicants, we have where they were, what they received, how much they spent, and where they're located. That's about what we have to give you.
What you don't have is some of the things that we're thinking we want to track. You don't have that information.
That's
but what
not
you
what
do have.
that's what someone is giving you the assignment to determine whether that's something you want to track, or we're not tracking it.
But what you could give me is you could tell me the name of the business, the amount of the grant, under both the rent reimbursement and property improvement.
Yes, ma'am.
And the location of the
And the location.
And the location.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Based on the address.
Yes.
Basically.
Yep, we could map it out, I think.
So
We probably
how many
should have a
years
map
do
of
we
that
want this
anyway,
for?
actually, now that I think about it.
3?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
3 years good enough?
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just a follow-up question, 2 follow-up questions.
Type of business, like name might not tell us the type
Sure,
of
oh
business.
no,
Could you tell us
absolutely,
the type
absolutely,
of business?
right.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Right.
2 follow-up questions were,
Sorry, scared it right out of you.
it seems like a fishing expedition to nowhere.
Well,
Somebody somewhere is wondering
if we're being fair.
women or minorities aren't getting as many as others.
Are we being fair?
Right. And
Now, here's the
I have
real
no way of
question.
Yeah.
Here's the real question, and this is the question about whether you keep this information. Those who receive versus those who apply. Do you keep all the applicant information versus those who receive?
We keep the applicant information to the point at which they have provided it. If an individual doesn't, the only time an individual will be turned away from the program is if their credit score isn't of the acceptable range for the program, which I believe is 600. So if it's below 600, 601. So we simply provide at that point a recommendation or evidence to the fact that the credit score is not what the guidelines require, and I think that's it. So we wouldn't get an application from someone who didn't give us all the paperwork. We would never see all of that applicant. There are, to my knowledge, there's been no applicant that has met all the qualifications that hasn't received a grant, so there's been no denials. There's only been people who haven't finished the application process or didn't meet the credit score. Now, if you want to, as a board, look at how low of a credit score is acceptable for us to give $50,000 or $60,000 or $10,000, that's another issue. We picked 601 because of industry standards and other types of lending. That seemed to be a nice sweet spot for us because it still provides a big gap between 600 and 8 something, but it doesn't get down to lower levels that you don't see other people lending. Because really, we are giving money to it without a lien, without any type of security, except the hope that this business, and the help that it will be successful. So we're really taking a big risk, and that might be the one thing we try to mitigate, you know, your 2 years tax return. There are some things we look at as a business, but again, it's really devoid of any other kinds of discussions at this point. Even going back and looking at applications, we were very uncomfortable doing that because it's a judgment call and a personal, you know, trying to discriminate as to, or determine who's what. I think it's really, we would not want to do that.
Okay, so one other question, this might have been one of the two. Are we allowed to make a recommendation that we do not do this?
Well,
No,
it's not that
really.
you wouldn't do the
We can make a
assignment.
recommendation that we don't change it
Right,
after we look at
you
it.
could end up deciding not to change anything.
So
you
let's
could.
just, let's
We'll,
do
we'll
what we're
go on
supposed
to another
do.
one, but I see where I'm at.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Let's-
good. Well, we'll
let's look
provide,
at it.
so the request was for the last 3 years of grant applicants,
Right.
locations, and dollar amount that they've provided and dollar amount that the CRA's provided.
Correct.
Okay, great.
To also include the credit scores of those that were not granted. So that, as to justify
Let
it
me
all.
ask Teresa if that applicant, if we do, here's what I believe happened.
That's
Go ahead,
not a
Teresa. I
private
think when you do a credit score and it's 520, we don't bring you to the, I misspoke and I'm sorry. We don't bring it to the board to waive that requirement. So if you come up, most people realize it generally that we have to do a credit score, and if it's below 601, they're probably not coming back, right? If it's 520,
I
if the bank,
should have, let me rephrase it.
I'm sorry.
And that's my,
It's my fault. I misled.
no, that's just me thinking too fast.
I misunderstood.
So, with those 3 years, providing the report, applicants that did not meet the criterion based on a credit score.
We may not have that information.
Oh.
Now, we have in pipeline people, but those aren't, we have some names we'll never hear from again, not because of their credit, they came in and we put them on a list to see if they'll come back, and they just never did.
So, yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt, Mike, but.
Oh, of course, please.
When these programs, just so you guys are well aware, when these programs come to us, Bonnie, I don't do
The
them
business,
anymore,
not the
Bonnie does it.
program.
We get walk-ins continuously, and she spends a lot of time, and she goes through every single, and I did too, criteria. And like Mike said, a lot of them we don't ever hear from again, and we don't keep track. We can start to keep track, but we did not keep track of every walk-in that comes in, and she could probably go by her calendar over the last 2 years.
Let me say this,
Okay, so that's
let me
way
say
more
this, board
information
member.
than I understand what they're going through.
Right.
In other words, there's a whole lot of people that start the
But-
process and never finish.
But his specific
Yeah.
question was, if I will tell you what staff will provide. If there was an individual that is an applicant and got as far as the credit score and didn't, and we have that information, we're happy to give you that 3 people didn't, or,
Yes.
we won't know where they're gonna go or what they were gonna be, but we would know that 3 people didn't meet their qualification.
So my reason for
That's
asking
good.
is because this seems, the line of the assignment seems as though it's going in a direction that says, based on what I know about the applications and the grant applications personally, there aren't many things other than not having all your ducks in a row, literally with the documentation or the credit score, that limit you from receiving the grant. So therefore, if the idea is that determine whether or not we're limiting, that really seems to be either an incomplete application, failure to return, or a credit score. It seems to be the only three ways you can deny or won't get the grant. So because those are the only 3 ways we can get the grant, then, or not receive the grant, we need to, the idea seems, or the premise of this is, how many people look purple that didn't get the grant, and how many people look green that did or did not get the grant? And I think that
that's not going to tell whether or not this is a fair program, but it's just going to say, okay, it's going to give someone ammunition or reason or cause to say, well, we should probably look at the credit score. But if we're using an industry standard as to what we do and who we lend money to, then this is a non-starter.
Well, but I might say one other thing. Okay? And this is only from my own experience. Not my personal experience, but from my own experience dealing with other small businesses in the area, not you, but other small businesses in the area. It's quite a cumbersome process. Not your fault, but from the city's perspective. Trying to get things through the city in order to get you the information that you need, it's a huge problem. And am I speaking?
You have a very well
am
point.
I speaking truth?
And
Is that, when you say to get us the information we need, is that our guideline requirements?
No, it's the fact that which has nothing to do with the CRA board.
It has nothing to do with you.
But it's there are
permitting processes.
Tons of
if that's considered a process on the last go around of grants for Troy's Barbecue, I had to call the mayor.
It is just such and I don't know if it's something that can be streamlined from the CRA's perspective, or whether there needs to be some sort of, I don't know, liaison issue. But anyway, maybe looking at this, we can see if there's something we can be done. But I can tell you that there's an issue.
That's great. I mean, maybe out of the discussion you find
right?
that the grants themselves aren't an issue, but there are other issues that you may identify and make recommendations on.
Right. Program is.
But
fine. Not this.
Could we also see the grants that were approved, their credit rating, and if we gave it to them 3 years ago, are they still in business today?
They'll have that. They'll know that.
Right,
That'll
so that
be
we
on
can
there.
see, so that we can kind of see
Yeah.
that 600 ratings fail, or 600 ratings are successful, and maybe we could do a 590 and address more people, or, you know, is the industry standard working just fine?
I'll give you, in my opinion, a reason why I think that's not the best idea. And 2 or 3 meetings ago, when we had the community caring center up here, I was banging the drum that I said, well, how do we know that they're going to be in business if we loan them this money? That doesn't seem like a very safe bet for us. And I'm the type of individual, even very old as I am right now, I don't like to, I don't play at the casino too much. So when you're lowering the credit score or requirement, you're risking money that isn't essentially yours to risk. So
understood, but if 90% of the 600s are successful, then maybe 75, 80% of the 590s. I'm not suggesting we drop it drastically. I'm just, you know, maybe it could be tweaked you know, I don't know how many people are at 580 and being turned down, or 590 and being turned down.
I think if we, and I don't mind that.
I mean,
but
if they're
first,
just
I
missing
think
the
let's look at
mark.
this information, but I also think that one of the things is if we had money that we couldn't give out, I'd be looking to go lower, but I don't think we have money we can't give out.
In my experience of doing the grants, I know for a fact, I could probably count on one hand people that's credit score did not make it, or they had a bankruptcy. If they have a bankruptcy, you can't even apply. So that shows up on your credit score within the last 7 years. So literally, I think off the top of my head, 3 in the time I've been doing them, and Bonnie, that literally their credit score was under the 600 and we had to refuse them.
They can't even sign a lease. They're not even coming, they're not even gonna be able to get a lease, much less come to us for grant money.
Oh my gosh, I don't even have that number off the top of your head, my head. I've been, it's a lot.
I think there were 65 or 68.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I thought I
But
remember right.
we'll have that. That's all, trust me. We've got a spreadsheet
I'm good.
that I'm very proud of.
Thank you.
So.
We have a public comment?
Yes, Mark Kara George, and this grant program, the grants program, have been tweaked, analyzed, studied. The criteria has been modified over the years. We spent a lot of time, I mean a lot of time on this. The criteria that is there is to be risk adverse for the agency. The playing with that credit number, no. I'm sorry, don't go there, okay? As far as any type of discrimination, the reason it was written the way it was written, it was based on business principles, nothing else. We insisted on that, so it would be fair and equitable to all. After all, the agency is an inclusive agency. We don't discriminate in any way, shape, or form in this city, whether it's the city or the CRA. And those type of actions would be dealt with severely. And I say this as a former CRA board member and as someone who has been in the development field for many years and now works for the city. I can tell you point blank that this program works, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep it the way it is. It works. They are vetted. I will tell you that when they come in and they see what they have to do, some of them panic. They get a look on their face like deer in the headlight, like, oh, you want all this? Well, yeah, we're putting money into your business. We're helping you grow. We're helping you get established. It's an incentive, okay? But it is not a handout. It is a handshake, and there's a big difference. And that's why this thing was written the way it was written. We've modified it over the years, but it's always been based on business principles and nothing else.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so we will be looking at this and we'll get the information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Our new business is to discuss and consider the purchase of property located at 1101 North Federal Highway.
Board, the new business item that's going to the CRA board at Tuesday night's, next Wednesday night, March 13th meeting, is the potential acquisition of the property located at the northwest corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and North Federal Highway. The address is, you had mentioned it, 1101 North Federal.
Yep.
The property appraised at $116,000, and after much negotiation and discussion, the owner has lowered their expectation to $140,000. We own the property across the street. The site, the building itself is not something that we would keep or be able to convert into retail at all. It's north of the barbecue, the old Troy's Barbecue, across from the Fish Depot.
Oh, okay, okay.
The building has not been active for many, many, many years. It's in the plan, in the CRA plan, it was identified as a potential site depending on how much other property we could acquire. And in this case, the businesses to the north are not in a situation where acquiring them would make much sense. They're fine businesses as far as the city and the code enforcement and everything else is concerned. But this particular site was looked at as kind of a opportunity to create some type of a gateway feature into the MLK corridor to provide some additional accents to that corner, whether they be pedestrian. There's no sidewalk, as you can see, that really continues across the intersection over the tracks on that side, on that north side. It dies off into the grass there. So we really aren't just, the intent to acquire this is to get rid of a blighted property and to try to create additional enhancements that make the business corridor to the west and Federal Highway appear in a much better condition. We are recommending a staff approval to the board.
So we have to pay an outstanding lien of $489,000?
No, I'm sorry. The
Must
city,
be
if
kidding.
you see in the write-up, the liens, the CRA has been working with the city, as we have done in the past, on outstanding amounts of liens that otherwise would not be discussed with a private property owner themselves, but in the intent of redevelopment and of improvement, the city will discuss waiving and has considered in a stipulated agreement that they will waive the running lien of many, many years and charge us for the administrative costs of approximately $2,500 and the lot mowing liens that total about $1,600. So we would be looking at about $2,700 to $2,800, $3,000 worth of additional cost on top of the $140.
Question. So there's a code compliance lien of $489,000 on this property, right? So why, I can't help but ask this question. Why can't the city put this property up for foreclosure or something? Why doesn't the city, how can the city have a lien on this property for $489,000 and not force sale of this property?
That is an excellent question for your city commission, and they meet the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. First and third.
I don't
Excuse
get
me,
it.
first and third.
I don't get it. Why are we going to pay a homeowner or this homeowner $140,000?
There's,
Why are we going to pay them anything? Why am I, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
I know you're not. This is a question that's been raised by individuals like ourselves for many, 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 many years in many different cities.
Many different cities.
Sometimes you have the appetite for foreclosure is, an uncomfortable one for cities. I would think a lien of $500,000 and not doing anything about it is equally uncomfortable, but that's my opinion. There's all kinds of due process notices that don't always get conducted accurately and within accordance with the law. That's another issue that you might bring up as to why that would be the reason too. But honestly, there are many times that we as staff are as confused by that question as you are, and it really, the only other answer I can give you is to direct you to the commission, because we don't have the authority, obviously. The city, I don't know how many properties there are. Statistically, how many throughout the city might be even higher liens than this? I completely agree. And
Hundreds.
you have
Never going to be able to pay that.
I'm going to guess hundreds.
Well, at a $500 a day or $1,000 a day, there's no more money the city's spending on it. It's just like it's like the debt, the national debt. It just keeps going up and up and up without.
On sign at the front of Boynton.
Right. So,
Counting it.
Just like the national debt in New York.
I do have one question. I think my question was answered, but we've agreed to pay what dollar amount in liens?
140. No, we haven't agreed to pay anything.
We haven't agreed to pay anything. They're asking.
We've agreed to pay the
The
owner
lien,
$140.
the lien basically goes away for $3,500.
But we're going to buy it from the owner for $140,000.
And then the city's going to waive the lien once we become owners?
Correct.
But we have to demolish.
We have to demolish the structure, so we will.
Part of the building.
The city this wasn't the same one, no. Yeah.
Maybe 1 second, just to.
It's probably a lot of attorney's fees and other things to implement the foreclosure that would amount to.
It's appraised at 114, right?
116?
Appraised at
116. And
That might be your counter, or it's within, what did you say, it was 20% above, but again, there's no basis or policy or
Appraised at
rule.
116.
Okay, and the agreed upon sale price or purchase
Well, they've
price.
agreed to accept 140.
We don't have the authority to negotiate only to a point where we bring it to you or the board. So we are now at a place where she's stopped, and we have the appraisal, and we're coming to you on whether you want to pay where she stopped or not.
Why did she stop? Do we know why she stopped?
Tell her, and
Yes.
she's decided why.
Oh, sorry.
No, well, please, Teresa, tell us.
Because I have been dealing with Ms. Ho on this. Originally, she was asking $250,000, and the response was absolute no, based on the liens that were on here. So the negotiation went back to her that on normally, the board will not, the CRA board will not normally pay over 20% of the appraised value of the property, especially with those types of liens. So that's where she came up with the 140. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You can deduct the cost of demo out of there if you want. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do.
Right, right.
Basically, the property belongs to the city at some point anyway, so.
Property belongs to the city, which then.
Yeah,
the
there's,
city
there's,
can title it over
city's,
to us for nothing.
yeah, it's the city's property for 489, 634, 12. I'd like to make a recommendation to the CRA board that we purchase this property with an appraised value of 116 with a 5% increase, considering the liens, demolition, and the fact that daily the lien continues to increase.
Yeah, there's probably reasons why. In discussions with
121.8.
police department about other properties where they're trying to do similar activities for, I forget what they call nuisance and other things. And the legal, it's a nightmare, and it runs up a lot of expense.
Do we know if she owns any other properties?
She has mentioned that she does, but I can't verify that. I can find out within the city. I can look it
Do I
up.
have a second?
So it's 116 with a 5% increase?
It would be 121.8.
121.
And we'll have to demo it, so there is a cost after we buy it. It's,
Second. So,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Comes back with 10% to the, just say okay.
Motion to
Give them,
adjourn.
give them the authority to do that.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Rather than having to come back.
We're adjourned.
It wouldn't come back. It's going to the board.
Well,
It'll go to the CRA board.
The CRA board.